I'm Tara LaBeouf, Vincent Services Manager. We are expecting over 90 folks on the Zoom today. I wonder why. I think you all have heard we're going to talk about some of that exciting funding from a generous grant. So that is coming up. Let me introduce who's here in the room while others are joining. We have to my left Ann Jordan, our Vincentian Services Coordinator. Ann was introduced recently to our conference presidents at their president's retreat. Ann has joined the team to assist us with all the technology tools that are available to conferences to help you with intake. Next, we have Sue Hansen, our Chief Financial Officer. At the end of the table, Mike Mees, the man you know well, Executive Director. Lisa Regan, our Associate Executive Director. Laura Gibbs. Tell me which title you'd like to use today.
Administrator.
Grant Administrator. And also Dr. Alexis from our Life Skills program. And Dr. Alexis will be sharing with you more detail about the very special programming that she offers to assist neighbors in need with transitioning to new hope and new pathways towards self-sufficiency and stability. With that, I'm going to open our presentation and share a screen with you. Just give me a minute. Okay, can everyone see our PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right, that's wonderful. Well, welcome again. And just give me a moment to do this up here. Great. Today's agenda, we're going to, as you heard, review some exciting things regarding programs and funding available to conferences to help our neighbors in need. First, we'll begin with an opening prayer related to one of our favorite saints who has an important day coming up. We'll have a few announcements. Then we'll discuss the Family Stability Matching Fund funded by the Bezos Day One Families Grant. Also, the Georgia Rehousing Initiative, also funded by that same grant. We have an update for you about the Atlanta Gas Light utility support for neighbors in need, and a SNAP update. Excuse me, I skipped the most important part. Our life skills in review. A teaser for you of some of the content that Dr. Alexa shares with neighbors who she's coaching through life skills and life decisions. We also will have an update about Voice for the Poor and closing prayer. So without further ado, let's move on to our opening prayer. Mike?
Thank you, Tara. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy to see so many fellow Vincentians joining us. Deacon Bill's not available today, so I wanted to share a prayer and a brief reflection. And I chose this prayer related to St. Louise de Marillac because some of you may know her feast day originally was March 15th this month, later this month. That's the date she passed away, which is typically the feast day for our saints. The Daughters of Charity successfully petitioned the Vatican to move the feast day to it's currently May 9th because they wanted to celebrate her life and her legacy, but they didn't want to do it during Lent. They wanted to have a celebration outside of Lent. So, but we got two opportunities then to celebrate St. Louise and her incredible influence on us, and I'll share a few minutes about her in just a moment. But let me read this prayer first. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O gracious God, St. Louise devoted her life to helping St. Vincent de Paul serve the needs of the poor. She often taught, be diligent in serving the poor, love the poor, honor them as you would honor Christ himself. We lift up to you the programs and our conferences and community that help the needy and the people who do that work. Multiply the donations, teach us how to think generously, give us hearts that desire to care for the poor as if we were serving Jesus directly, and help us to see Jesus in each person that begs on the street corner or church door. St. Louise, pray for us.
Amen.
I love this quote from Louise: encourage one another and may your mutual good example speak louder than any words can. And I want to just share briefly a little bit about St. Louise, and that's a wonderful quote because we can follow her good example. And it's wonderful that we know so much about St. Louise and her life from many of her letters. Some of you may know that St. Vincent de Paul was introduced to her early on as her spiritual advisor, spiritual director. So there's a lot of written correspondence that was saved between them, very intimate, personal revelations about her life, her struggles, and then, of course, a lot of letters that she wrote to her sisters as she established the Daughters of Charity around France and elsewhere. So she had as some of you may know, a very difficult family life. She grew up as an illegitimate daughter of a very wealthy man in France and was sort of ostracized for that and sent away as a young girl to boarding schools. And because of that, never felt the love of a family. And that's something that sort of haunted her entire life. She wanted to go into the convent, but was denied for apparently health reasons, although she lived a long and healthy life. And so she married and had a son who caused her a lot of trouble and anxiety, as some of us with children can relate to, and became a widow and eventually found comfort in St. Vincent and his spiritual direction. And he was really able to help her identify and connect with her spiritual desire. She had a wonderful conversion experience on Pentecost one year that really changed her life. But St. Vincent de Paul saw in St. Louise incredible talents and skills that she didn't know she had, and brought those out, brought them to the forefront for service to the poor. And her legacy is incredible because of that. She and Vincent co-founded the Daughters of Charity, as we know, which is still today, 400 years later, the largest order of religious women in the world. So her impact is incredible. She's a wonderful example to all of us. She's dealt with family struggles, and she had a husband and a child and work, and so she can relate to everything that we can relate to. And it's a great reminder that we all have, as Blessed Frederick Ozanam described, we have our seeds of sanctity, our inner saints, and Vincent was able to help her find her seeds of sanctity and bring out her inner saint. So we pray for her intercession to help us find our inner saints and bring those to service to our neighbors in need. So St. Louise, pray for us. Amen.
Next, we're going to discuss probably what many of you have been waiting to hear for days and weeks upon end, more detail about the Bezos Day One Families Grant that will support new outreach to homeless families in Georgia. And with that, we have Lisa Regan here. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, Mike's going to begin, and then Lisa will describe some of the
Kick it off and hand over to Lisa. So I just wanted to describe for everybody a little bit about the grant. Put it in context, talk about some of the requirements of the grant. As you know, we announced this in December. Got a lot of great coverage, which is a double-edged sword. It was good on the one hand. On the other hand, a lot of people called asking for use of this money. So I want to share with you kind of what the rules are, if you will. So if you can click, Tara. So again, this is a $5 million award specifically to support homeless families over 5 years. The purpose, as described in the grant document itself, is to pursue solutions to family homelessness, focusing on providing housing as well as social services, skills training, and job support. This is families in transitioning to and remaining in permanent housing. So that says a lot because it's not about getting people into housing. It's about wrapping them with services and support to ensure that they can become stable. Homeless families specifically is the target of this grant funding, as I mentioned, and that means families currently experiencing homelessness. So not families likely to become homeless in the future. These are families that are currently homeless, not with a permanent residence where they live. They could be outdoors, it could be in cars, it could be in motels, couch surfing, or someplace where they are currently like a shelter but have to leave it at some point. Or who are in the process of exiting homelessness. They may be in some transitional program and need help stabilizing in permanent housing. The grant can fund outreach, communicating with our neighbors about resources and availability, emergency shelter, housing, transitional or permanent housing, and wraparound services. And it's intended, as I indicated, to have an impact over 5 years. So, this is the largest gift in our history, as we all know. Sounds like a huge amount of money because it is $5 million. You stack $5 million $1 bills, it's taller than the Eiffel Tower. But in the grand scheme of things, there are 25 to 30,000 families that meet that description here in the state of Georgia. And so $1 million a year for 5 years is significant, but it's roughly $40 per homeless family. So we need to be judicious about how we use it. It's a great down payment on the problem and will allow us to have a tremendous impact for a large number of families, but a small percentage, unfortunately, of the total families that meet that population. Before Lisa talks about some of the direct aid funding, I want to share with you the allocations of the first year's $1 million that has been proposed and approved with the board. Over 60% of it is going to direct aid, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Most of that is direct aid for conferences. So either money that you can spend or money to directly support neighbors that you refer to us for our rehousing initiative, which we'll talk about in a minute. Some of that is direct aid for what we refer to as white space, which Krista Fry's team here, Laura and others serve that white space. That's all the areas of the state that are not covered by a conference, which is huge territory, even large areas here in Metro Atlanta. And then some of that is kind of hybrid. It could be used for families that come here to the council office or referrals from conferences. We're also investing in a couple of staff positions, one 100% dedicated to supporting conferences, an expert on family homelessness and resources that you can refer to when you have a difficult case and are looking for solutions. We're also going to expand some of the wraparound program staffing that we have to support families in crisis, our income advancement program or landlord engagement program, for example. And then we're reserving about 10% in dry powder, if you will, so that we can see, where we need more funds in these other categories, and we can adjust as the year progresses. This is the first year allocation, so I don't know whether future years allocations will be similar. We'll see what works, what doesn't work, what goes well, what we learn, and we'll adjust to that and allocate the money in future years. For your information, we have all these funds. We received $5 million in December. But the intent of the funds is to have an impact over 5 years. We're not necessarily restricted to spending those over 5 years, but we intend to do that to honor the intent of the donor, which is Jeff and Lauren Sanchez Bezos. So with that, I will let Lisa explain some details.
The weeds. Okay, so as Mike said, we have apportioned a significant percentage of this first year funding for direct funding for conference use. So this is for the purposes of conference access, 2 separate applications that are available to Vincentians. The one that is most pertinent, I believe, and broadest is the Family Stability Matching Fund. And I'll take you through some Q&As, some of these frequently asked questions that we'll walk through in the next few slides. We'll probably double back on some of what Mike said, but I just want to be really intentional about what these 2 pieces are. This first Family Stability Matching Fund is a matching fund for conference direct aid that is intended to support homeless families. So as Mike said, a homeless family is any family without a permanent home who has a minor child in their purview. It doesn't necessarily need to be a parent-child relationship, but they need to be caring for a child under the age of 18. If you provide support that's stabilizing support, these bullet points here specify hotels, but as you'll see on the successive slides, that can also incorporate other emergency aid for transportation, storage units, that sort of thing. The point is emergency aid for families, and the council will match that direct aid up to $500 one-to-one so that you can extend the support for that family. The other piece, and we'll walk through both of these with more intention on the next slides, is the Georgia Rehousing Initiative. That sounds kind of like a government program, but it's not. It's just the name that we came up with the program. This is our council program that is specifically for homeless families who have income, but they're not able to get themselves into permanent housing. We've seen this before with some of our other programs, our Metro Atlanta rehousing program, and even Motel to Home. Families have income, but they can't get themselves into permanent housing because the expense of a deposit, of the first month's rent, of the moving costs, etc. So if you are working with families who have income, but they're homeless, you can refer them to the council for us to vet for the Georgia Rehousing Initiative, which would provide $2,000 for moving costs that will allow them to get into permanent housing. So with that overview, we'll go into Q&As, and then we'll have opportunity to ask questions at the end. So going back to this first piece is the Family Stability Matching Fund, $250,000 in total for this first year, ending at the end of this calendar year, is made available for conferences. And again, this is a matching fund that supports conferences providing direct aid to homeless families. It includes shelter, motels, wraparound support specific to that emergency support and crisis management of homeless families. And again, as Mike said, we define homeless families as any family that doesn't have a permanent home. So they can be in a motel, they can be paying for a motel, they can be couch surfing, they can be in a car, they can be in an emergency shelter, but it's a family that does not have a permanent home. And again, the type of aid that's eligible for the matching fund is anything that provides immediate stabilizing services. That's going to be, most likely motel stays. Most conferences we see that serve homeless families serve them in that way through extended stay motels, but it could also be transportation related, car repairs, storage unit fees. And if there's other aid that you deem as appropriate and emergency oriented, ask, and we can certainly consider other forms of aid. So how does the grant work? We do have a web form available to you. This is a very simple form. So you will simply fill out the form, the name of the caseworker, or if you choose a designee in your conference who can be the family stability representative, that's fine. That's up to the conferences. But you can make a request for a matching fund. So you will indicate who it is from the conference who's submitting the form. I don't have all the form fields here. This is just a snip of it, but that's the link to the form. And then you will just simply refer to the case number and make sure that I think on the successive slide, you probably, yeah. Okay, you want to make sure that in the case, you have household information populated so we can see that there's a minor child in the household. We'll want to see that there's assistance category that is relevant to this fund. And then we'll also be looking for a check request. And the check request is to your conference treasurer. And that check request can be a request or it can be paid. But we're just going to be looking that for what you have done in CMS, we don't need anything beyond what you would normally do to manage a case. We're just going to be looking to make sure that it corresponds with the purpose of the grant. What do I have here? Okay, can conferences apply for reimbursement of past aid? We're saying no on this because really the purpose here is for us to encourage conferences to do more. We want to encourage conferences and council to work together to serve more homeless families and not to reimburse for past expenses. That we could run through this fund really quickly if everybody, applied for reimbursement. The council is not paying vendors directly. Again, we're looking for a check request to your conference treasurer. So this is business as usual for conferences. We're trying to make this super, super simple. We're not going to be paying vendors. We're not going to be asking for receipts. We just want to be looking to see what you are doing as a conference to tend to homeless families. And again, the cap is $500 of matching aid per family. So if you show us in the case that you're providing $800 of aid, that could be $500 for an extended stay hotel plus $300 for transportation. That's great. We'll match $500 of that. So that's cap. If you show us that you've provided $300 in aid, we'll match that $300. So it's a match with a cap of $500. And then how quickly can conferences expect funding to be received? My good friend Laura Gibbs, who's sitting next to me, is going to be managing the grants here to start. And Laura and Krista and I have been, and Sue have been talking and planning for the past week, and we are prepared to prioritize this grant. So you can expect to have funds in your account within a week to 10 days of submitting the request. If we identify an issue, if we see something in CMS that does not correspond with what we've been saying, then we'll reach out within 3 to 5 days and just let you know what's up. All right. So those are the Q&As for the Family Stability Grant.
Just one thing to add on that. I mean, the main reason for having a CMS case that we can validate is so that we can assure that there is a minor child in the home, that this is a family, because these funds can only be spent to support families. It cannot be spent to support homeless individuals without children. So this is our way to comply with the grant reporting requirements.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I can't see you all because I'm looking at slides, but if we want to pause for just a minute and let me know if anybody has questions, we will have time for Q&A at the end of both of these pieces, but I just want to make sure that we're generally being clear here. And we also have Sue Hansen here, who can also speak from the perspective of finance. So anyone raise your hand or just open your mic and shout out. If not, we'll just move on.
Lisa, there's questions in the chat if you can go to the chat.
Okay. Thanks, Heidi.
Let's give us a second.
You know what we can do is move on and field questions for both grants that are from the chat. Maybe we can ask Brian to do that, Tara.
Yes.
So feel free to put your questions in the chat. Then when we walk through the second program, then we'll field questions. This second, Sharon, thank you. So the second application that is available for you is this Georgia Rehousing Initiative. And this is $150,000 set aside for conference referrals. And I want to be very specific about this. This is not a program that we're expecting conference caseworkers to case manage. This is a referral to council, and it provides up to $2,000 of rehousing expenses for moving costs, including an apartment deposit and a first month's rent for homeless families who are transitioning to permanent housing. This might look familiar because the Metro Atlanta, for those of you who are in Metro Atlanta, the Metro Atlanta Rehousing Initiative is similar to this. And of course, Motel to Home provides that set aside as well, the $2,000 of rehousing costs as well. This is for a different demographic. And we're certainly happy to pick that apart with anyone who wants to dive into this deeper. The Georgia Rehousing Initiative would be for someone who does not qualify for the motel at home. They haven't been in a motel for a long period of time. It's a homeless family who has income, but they cannot get themselves into permanent housing. So again, to Mike's point, in compliance with the grant, who is eligible, it's families with a minor child. They're currently homeless, but they have some available income to sustain permanent housing. And this might include Social Security income, disability income, retirement plans, or some form of employment. Somebody in the house would need to be employed if they don't have other forms of income. So you might expect, like, what gap are we trying to fill here, right? Because it's hard to believe that there are homeless families living in a car that actually have income to afford an apartment. But what we have found through the Metro Atlanta rehousing program is that exists. There are people who are homeless who just can't get to that place of getting themselves to permanent housing. So it covers the hefty deposit fees and the move-in costs that are typical barriers to secure permanent housing. All right, so there is a web form for you to refer family to this program. This is not a neighbor-facing web form, so you will not find this on our member page at this point. It's not Googleable. We'll make sure that it goes out into newsletters to conferences for Vincentians to use. But we want to be very clear on this because it could get confusing for neighbors. This is simply a vehicle for conferences to refer to the council if you have a family you're working with that you think might be eligible for this program. So no, conferences will not need to vet families based on income and, secure their tax documents and things like that. All that would be on the council. Council caseworkers will contact the families. We will request additional information to determine if they're eligible for this or another council program. It could be that they are eligible for motel to home. That's better. It certainly would be our default. But, let the council determine that. How will you all know if your neighbors have been approved for the program? We have set up a separate email address. If you'd like more information on the status of the referral, just please be patient because again, this is a referral we'll be working and vetting along with other programs that we have at the council. But we know that you have continual relationships with your neighbors and you're certainly welcome to reach out to us if you would like to know what the status of the referral is. That's what I have. I think that's it.
We do have several questions from chat. One is, will the Bezos grant free up any council funds that were previously used for eviction prevention?
Free up.
This is
the
incremental.
council
This is
fund.
incremental.
Yeah, I mean, this is, these funds are incremental. These funds are not for eviction prevention. They're for people that are currently homeless, not susceptible to becoming homelessness. So it certainly frees up conference funds to the extent that you can use your existing funding for supporting families and preventing evictions for families that are housed and refer families that are unhoused that you might have helped in the past. You can refer to this Georgia Rehousing Initiative program. So it could free up funds at the conference level. Doesn't really necessarily free up funds at the council level.
Question about someone who has children in foster care until they are stabilized in a home. Would a homeless parent whose kids are in custody with another guardian at this time be eligible for funding?
I'm going to say the child needs to be in the care of the people that we're supporting through this grant.
Yes. Again, the grant requires it to be a homeless family. If the children are housed someplace with a foster family, then they're not homeless.
They're getting
So,
funding.
and they're getting funding through the state.
Can a family receive funding from both programs?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, we hope that the Georgia Rehousing Initiative might be a way of continuing your care for the family that you're sending it through the match.
Which is an important point. I mean, the emergency housing matching grant to get people off the streets into a motel, hopefully is a first step to the conference working with that family to either refer them to other programs here at the council or to provide other services and assistance, including things like our life skills classes. So yes, hopefully it's not just, you're not just referring people and putting them in a motel and it's one and done. There's a relationship there that we build on to try to get them to the next step.
I also had a question.
Mike, can I just
Yeah.
say, we may need to have some more discussion around the foster care issue, because often obtaining housing is a requirement for family reunification. And that's, for many of them, that's the reason that the child is in foster care, is lack of suitable housing. So just maybe put a pin in that one and see that may need more discussion, and particularly in the case for
Yeah, I
whoever
mean,
asked that
there's-
question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, Denise, although there's nothing to prevent us from using other funds to support that family. And to support those parents and get them stable and, so.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
good point as well.
Yeah.
Sorry,
have
this is
several
Heidi. Lisa, can I just jump in? Can you clarify that these are families with a housing approval? That caseworkers, these families need to have an approval, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
unlike motel to home where we can help people, this program is specifically for families that already have been approved for housing.
And that is the difference between motel to home and this program. Motel to home is continuing. A question in the chat was asked if this replaces motel to
Yeah,
home.
absolutely
No,
not.
it does not.
To supplement to,
Correct. And Heidi, feel free to take that question if you'd like to clarify there.
Yeah, just motel to home is very different in that we are a 12-month program with our financial literacy, our savings programs, our income advancement program. This literally is just move-in assistance, and where motel to home cannot assist families that do not have 30 days of a hotel or Airbnb, this program covers the families that are couch surfing, coming from a shelter, or in their cars. So that's really the distinction. If they're in a hotel, they're going to come to us. If they are not, and they have a housing approval, they'll go to GRI.
and I just, for anybody who may not understand what it means to have a housing approval, that's not a voucher or anything. That's approval from a landlord. They have an offer to move into an apartment. They have a move-in acceptance.
And they'll be able to afford that lease going forward.
Yeah.
Once they have a little bit of move-in assistance. Question was asked if the conference does not have enough funds to provide the assistance up front, could the conference receive a seed amount of funding, such as $1,000? Because they,
Yeah, conferences that don't have sufficient funds for the basic service can certainly take advantage of our council twinning account. We've distributed lots of money over the last 12 months to 23 different conferences that have needs for additional funding. You just need to request that through your district president. You can provide that kind of funding to conferences that are running low or out of funds or can't provide this sort of initial funding.
also, we were asked, is susceptible of becoming homeless something that makes a family eligible?
According to
Sounds like-
visas, no.
No, if they're in an apartment where they have a lease, even if they're having trouble paying that lease, that's what we use our other conference funds for. That's our main activity of our conferences, to support those families.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, there's,
can't help everybody with these funds.
right, I was just gonna say, there's very few stipulations with this grant. It really does give us a lot of leeway, but the one stipulation is that it is a homeless family. There are two stipulations.
We have a question, how do we recommend communicating these programs to caseworkers? You'll see links at the end of the presentation to share with your caseworkers. Please bring those to conference meetings. Ask your secretaries to distribute those. Your caseworkers are welcome to contact me if they have any questions, but there are several of us on the call today. For those who couldn't join, this call is being recorded and we'll make this available to you after the webinar as well. Are there any questions from the crowd that we haven't yet?
Can I just have one other, reinforce something that Lisa said earlier, the web link to the Georgia Rehousing Initiative is not to be given to neighbors that you're serving. It's for your caseworkers to submit a case or to submit an application for somebody, and then our team here will follow up with those. If it gets distributed to neighbors in need, we'll be inundated with requests that we can't handle, and just be a source of frustration. This is intended to be a conference program. Even the GRI, it's for conferences to identify neighbors you're working with that you think would be eligible for this and refer them.
The GRA is really another tool specific for conferences through this program. And if you have any questions about whether you think your neighbor might be eligible for motel to home versus GRA or what have you, we will vet people for all of those programs through this form, but do feel free to reach out to me, Marielle, Heidi, Tara. We're happy to clarify that. Motel to home is our flagship housing program that provides much more than the GRI emergency stipend. So that would definitely be our default. If people qualify for motel to home, we'll be looking for that. But always feel free to reach out to us if that needs any clarification.
I do want to say one thing that may have been kind of brushed over just a little. For the GRI program, we talked about the caseworkers here at the council office vetting it. They need to have income, they need to have the welcome letter, but there needs to be a realistic ratio, rent to income ratio. So we're not having people at 80% of their income or very high. I think we're looking at around 40 is what we did for motel to home. We probably have a little bit wiggle room on that.
Yeah, we have a little bit more flexibility,
On that,
but 40% is a good
Yeah.
target. If their approval letter or their welcome letter is for an apartment that's 50% of their income, that's not something that we're likely to fund, because it's not going to be sustainable. We're throwing good money after bad, unfortunately. So
Throwing good money after that, and also potentially setting the neighbors up for an eviction, which is not going to help them in the future. So we're always looking to make sure that we're responsible with what we recommend.
I see a request here in chat for a slide that compares each of these programs, the differences between motel to home, GRI, and the Family Stability Fund. We can certainly put that together for you and make that available very quickly.
I think we have it.
Thanks for that suggestion.
And yesterday.
And also, finally, one question: if a conference pays $500 for a family and extended stay, and the council reimburses $500, should the conference use that money for the same family? That is the intent.
yeah, the intent is to stretch your dollars so that you can provide more service to these families. So if you're able to put them up for a week at an extended stay motel and it's $500, this gives you the opportunity to extend it for another week, giving more time for that family to figure out the next step, and for you to be working with that family to help them figure out the next step.
But it's not required, right?
It's an encouragement.
They're not required to use it.
It's not required, but it's intended to expand what the conference is doing.
Yeah.
There are certainly more questions coming up. We'll continue to answer those. Moving on, we'd like to provide a reminder to all of you about the Atlanta Gas and Light Grant. That is an $86,000 grant to help conferences pay neighbors in need for their utility bills. Laura, would you like to share an update on this grant that you administer?
Yes, so I just submitted some cases for refunding. I believe it's about 12,000 for this month, March. That leaves us with a balance of about $40,000 for conferences to spend. I know by now, in previous years, we've pretty much blown through this 86, but there's lots of money still for conferences that may not have already submitted requests for reimbursements. So,
yeah. And again, just a reminder, this is something that neighbors anywhere in Georgia could be eligible for if they are a customer of one of 14 natural gas providers. After the conference pays a utility bill related to natural gas for a neighbor in need, they can apply for reimbursement through a web form at this URL you see on screen right now. Laura will review that request and
The max of $400.
Yeah.
Each bill, yeah.
Each one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Max of $400 per
Yes.
neighbor in need. Yeah. All right. Moving on to HEAL, we have invited a special guest to join us today. That is Dr. Alexis, who leads our adult life skills class. This is a hybrid class offered in person and online simultaneously for neighbors anywhere in the state. They are welcome to join weekly coaching calls with Dr. Alexis that happen each Tuesday at 10 a.m. The way your neighbors in need can register for these is through the events portion of our website. That's svdpgeorgia.org/events. They'll highlight get involved, scroll to events, find a calendar of offerings, and they can choose the course they'd like to register for. They can drop in and out as needed. They don't need to attend every week, but of course, the more frequently they're able to consult with Dr. Alexis, the more skills they're going to capture for self-improvement. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Alexis to share a little bit more about what is entailed in this program.
Good morning. First, just to give you a little bit of my background, I have a PhD in religious counseling and I have a PhD in criminal justice. I'm a retired prison warden for the Georgia Department of Corrections. I had 27.5 years in. I started as a counselor and worked all the way up to being a warden of male and female facilities. Never thinking that it would lead to something like life assessments, because basically I've always been involved with life skills because of my employment. I also was the gender advisor for the Afghan women that were in prison throughout the country of Afghanistan. And I did that for a year, and that was under the auspices of the State Department of the United States. Okay, when we talk about life skills, the first thing to do is conduct a life assessment. Many of us have a love-hate relationship with the current state of our lives. There's some things that we enjoy and appreciate about our circumstances, but if we're honest with ourselves, there's some things we want to change about them too. But before you can get clear about how you might improve, you need to have a good sense of where you are right now. The first step is to take the honest assessment of your current reality in 7 specific areas of your life, beginning with lifestyle, satisfaction with living environment, how you spend your leisure time, work, satisfaction with where you work, what you're doing to earn your living, education, satisfaction with your educational attainment to date, college, vocational school, and other learning goals, finances, the current state of your budget, money management, salary, net worth, debt to income ratio, health, the current status of your mental, physical, and spiritual health, family, the quality of your relationships with family members, including siblings and children, and relationships, quality of your relationships with friends and romantic partners. For each of these specific areas of your life, ask yourself 2 questions. What do I like about this area of my life? And what do I dislike about this area of my life? Bottom line, they will know. We can't sit there and prescribe that we see you this way. They have to be honest. And that's all of us when we talk about life assessment. And I always use this as a guide. The colors are really pretty. And it also gets you to answer both questions. What do you like and what do you dislike about your lifestyle, work, education, finances, health, family, and relationships? I also go on and do a life mapping workbook. And this deals with those 7 areas. And you get to put your name in the middle because it's you. And then with their lifestyle, you want to think about, what do I want to change and what do I want to change it to? What would be appropriate for me? And more importantly, what's realistic for me? To say with a lifestyle like I want to have $1 million. Let's be realistic. We would all like to have $1 million, but that's not going to happen. And you need to think about that with reference with steps. And it's important that I talk with each individual, whoever is in person and whoever is coming through virtually, I make sure that I speak to them and address them with their names. It's so important for them to realize that they have a sense of being and that they, quote, they are somebody and they're recognized and they are listened to. And that by doing that, that helps me to include a safe space where they feel confident enough to talk about what's going on, because sometimes after class, somebody will want to speak to me about something, and I listen very carefully to feeling words. I want to see what's coming across negatively and what's coming across positively. Okay. The next one is Rosetta's life map, and Rosetta is a made-up person, unless somebody knows her personally. Okay. And with this one, it showed what she chose for herself, and I'll just go through a few of the examples. For lifestyle, she wanted to have frequent travel to the beach or abroad 1 time a year. She wanted an apartment with a big kitchen and an entertaining space. Okay. For work, this was her choice. She wanted to be CEO of me. She wanted to have a writing, speaking, helping people with their purpose engagement. Basically a life coach. Education, lifelong learning through books, classes, and conferences. And that's something that I always state to them. Learn until the last day that you're with us. Education does not mean that you have to go to college. It does not mean that you have to have a certain routine with certain books, certain topics. It's what you feel comfortable with learning. Learning can be as simple as learning to boil an egg, something that I probably can't do. It's so important for them to realize that there are things that they can do that are realistic, but what education is, it stems further than being in the classroom. Finances. She wanted no debt, good credit score, and 6 months of savings with a travel fund. That's doable in a lot of cases, and especially when we talk about good credit, making sure that they're not spending every single dime on anything to deal with entertainment, travel, etc., but making sure that they want to do something that is responsible and especially for themselves and their family members. Health. Health is so important. And something that I do with health is dealing with the possibility of having exam room examples. So many times, people, especially that are homeless, people that are diverse, when they go to that exam room with the doctor is not going to treat them with respect. The doctor first thing is going to come out of their mouth. What's wrong with you? How do you feel today? What are your problems? You do not address somebody like that, and especially when we're talking about different diversities. You treat them with respect, eye contact, and it's so important if they're going to give you a lot of mumbo jumbo. And I'll give you an example. Essential hemorrhagic thrombocythemia myeloproliferative neoplasm. That's a rare blood cancer and one that I have. And you hear a doctor reel that off to you and it's like, oh my God, what is that? No, you ask them to put it in terms that you can understand. They owe you that, and it's their responsibility to treat you with that respect. And I guess I have a big thing about the health, because if you don't have your health, you can't work. You can't provide for yourself or your family. You are probably going to end up homeless because you don't have any income coming in. So it's really important when we talk about health that they know what goes on in the exam room and that it's their responsibility to get that doctor to answer their questions. Also, if the doctor does not answer their questions, go to another one. If they say things and they're not breaking it down to you, don't feel that you have to stay with that one doctor. Go to someone that you trust, and more importantly, somebody that respects you and treats you with dignity. Okay? Family, working on family, reunification in some cases, and in other cases, learning how to deal with the different age groups in the family, learning who is in charge of the family, planning holiday get-togethers, knowing what's going to deal with that. It's so important. Also, we go on to relationships. And with relationships, that's really interesting because those can be happy times, happy hours. Was with Rosetta wanted happy hours with her friends. She wanted to host a dinner party and a romantic and supportive partner. Great for Rosetta. That's not always the reality for somebody that's homeless. And when we talk about relationships, We're talking about relationships that they have with your family members, what they have with your friends, and the types of friends that they have. Are those relationships beneficial? Are those relationships going to keep them out of jail, out of prison? Are those relationships going to cause them to lose their family members, especially if it's a child? Those are so important. And those are Rosetta's life skill maps, but those are what we use in our class. Also with everybody, what I do also is I give a sheet for each domain. Like for lifestyle, it says ideally, where do you want to be living? What do you want your everyday environment to look like? And how do you want to be spending your leisure time? And so many times with leisure time, that's an interesting concept. They don't understand about leisure time. They think that leisure time means you do nothing. No, you do something that you like. Develop a hobby, develop a skill. And especially if there are children around, remember, children learn from what they see you do, not from what you tell them to do. Someone that's smoking a cigarette and saying, oh, don't smoke, it's really bad for you. What you're teaching that child, oh, it's bad for them, it won't be bad for me. Let me do the same thing, because that's what they learn. That's a natural environment. When we talk about the ultimate in life skills checklist, I make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to express their answers and to explain them for somebody else in the group that may not understand. And an example would be change a tire. I can't do that. Call for roadside assistance. I can do that. Sew a button. I can't do that because I would never be able to see the eye of a needle unless it was this big. Okay. Other things that would be on there, opening a checking account, explaining how to do that. That's an ultimate life skill that you have to have if you are going to take care of your money and take care of it appropriately. Getting a passport for somebody that wants to do travel later on, but when it's only when it is a positive ability that can be accomplished. Not just saying I want to go to Turkey, but I don't know how to get there. How much is a room? The whole trip costs $10,850, knowing all of the prerequisites that you would need. I also always have a sheet with questions on it to ask so that I have an understanding of what their understanding of what needs to be explained further. When we're doing work, I'm going to particularly go there. We actually do interviews. We talk about interview questions. We talk about soft skills. We talk about the importance of work, and more importantly, the importance of maintaining the job once you get it. If you're due at work at 8 o'clock, you don't sign in at 8 o'clock. You sign in within 7:45 to 7:50. 8 o'clock, you're expected to be at your workstation if that's what hours you're working. And that's so important. Getting along with your teammates. You don't have to like them. You don't have to love them, but you must respect them and you must work with them. If you're given a certain detail that you're supposed to complete, if you know how to do something that somebody else does and you see that they're falling behind, there's nothing wrong with saying, can I help you? Ask them. Don't just assume. Ask them for their permission. Other things that we talk about in the class too are things to do for yourself. And an example would be start spending time with the right people. Start being yourself genuinely and proudly. Start valuing the lessons that your mistakes teach you. We all make mistakes, but we learn from them. Start actively nurturing your most important relationships. Start concentrating on the things that you can control. None of us can control everything, just the things that we can. And also I do a little bit of self-esteem, and one of them, I'll just do this, is called toot your horn. And an example is, I like myself because. Why do you like yourself? I'm an expert at. What? What are you an expert at? I feel good about. My friends would tell you I have a great what? Personality, I have great eyes, whatever. My favorite place is, I'm loved by. People say I am a good. I've been told I have pretty, and it's really interesting with the information that they will impart. Again, I'm looking for the positive and the negative with how they are expressing it. Sometimes too, I might end up with one person in the class, and that's great. You know why? Really get to have a one-on-one with them. And if they are having problems, I have a problem sheet and I will tick off what the problems are. And then I will give that to Krista when I finish so that they know that I care enough about them to say these things. One more thing. when we talk about diversity, especially when I was dealing with families, I realized I needed to include 3 more family types. I needed to include the families of Asians and explain about that because their culture is different. I needed to also explain about the LGBTQ plus family, 2 mommies, 2 daddies. I also needed to explain about the Hispanic family setup, as opposed to us knowing about the nuclear and the other families that we know about. Those were 3 additions that I felt I had to do. And with the Asian family, it was interesting. I had a young man, and I could tell from his language and his speech pattern that he was not born here in the United States, possibly, and that he came from the Asian culture. And I know a little Dari from my time in Afghanistan. And I said to him, I said, Sobahai, Mohammed. And he was like, Sobahai. He goes, you speak Dari. And he was just so excited. So we talked a little about, a little bit about that, but I realized I need to incorporate that in because I want everyone to feel respected. I want everyone to feel important, and I want them all to feel valuable. And one of my little signs with them my little personal moniker is I'll say, what are you worth? And all the things that you get back. So most of them, are negative. Most of them are negative. I go, I'm going to tell you what you're worth. You're priceless. Now, everybody on here, and I go, Santee's, Faith, blah, 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 all the names. I'll say, what are you worth? And they'll all shout, priceless. I go, there we go. Okay. So we meet from 10 to 11 on Tuesdays. And sometimes if I have to, I'll stay after if there's a need. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, already online, we're seeing multiple compliments from how awesome this sounds. How can neighbors who are working during the day take advantage of this? Is there an opportunity for anyone in the evening or on a weekend to participate in some way?
I'm sorry. No,
Yeah.
I just do it on the Tuesdays. And one more thing that I let them know, if I am not there on a Tuesday, the reason being I have cancer. And I let them know that because I have to share part of who I am too. And I'll say, it's not because I did not want to be present with you. It's that I have to go for treatment. I'm not feeling well. I will call into, I don't tell them this, but I will call into Krista to let her know in advance. And then when I come back, and it is amazing. I have all these prayer warriors now. It's just wonderful.
That's fantastic.
I think you're also training Christiana and some of our team on some of these pieces as well, or
Not at this time.
not at this time.
Mhm.
That might be something that we want to think about doing too, just to share.
Yeah, so there would be continuity.
Yeah, exactly. But just something too real quickly. I hope that conferences see Dr. Alexis's curriculum and other things that we're offering at the support center as an extension of the family stability program as a whole. While we're offering funds for you to, support homeless families, there are opportunities to engage on another level. And I think, from what I've seen and from what I've heard what you do, the examples that you provided here are really oriented to people that are maybe higher functioning than some of the homeless families that we'll be working with. But I know that you can pivot, and I've seen and heard you here with some of our homeless population that comes to Chamblee. So it's really a great resource for us to more fully tend to the families.
I have a question and a comment. So what is the maximum number of people you can accommodate in one class?
As many as show up.
Okay.
There is no cutoff.
No limit.
No.
All right, wonderful. And the comment is just for everybody online, you may recall, hopefully you've all had a chance to look at our strategic plan we adopted 18 months ago, but one of the areas of focus was on providing more holistic support to our neighbors that we serve. And this is part of that. We want to minister not just to the immediate tangible needs that they have for food and housing and electricity and clothing, etc., but also minister to the person, meet them where they are, minister to their emotional, spiritual needs. And this, along with our diaconate program and some of our other things, are part of that. So we're really grateful to Dr. Alexis for contributing to that, and hope all of you encourage neighbors you serve to attend. And if we develop enough where we've got overwhelming demand and we need to find another Dr. Alexis and offer an evening session or something, I look forward to getting to that point. That would be great.
In addition to life skills, we also offer another weekly opportunity for neighbors to find more skills for self-improvement, and that is budgeting and financial education. That is like life skills offered online and in person Thursdays at 2 p.m. And by following the same pathway online, neighbors can register directly for those classes, which are supported by our partner, Beal Bank. And you'll find those under Get Involved and Events. Okay. Next, we're turning our attention to Feed and all of the initiatives related to preventing hunger. With that, Christiana McLean is ready to join us and share an update about recent changes to SNAP. Christiana, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. Hi. I hope y'all can hear me well. Thanks for giving me some time to share some SNAP updates. I really wanted to just focus on like 3 changes that have happened since this past July. The ABOD work requirements, which changed last July 25th, and we're seeing. Can you hear me?
We lost you briefly, but yeah, now we can hear you.
You have some feedback for everybody. Could
I
mute
muted
everyone.
it. I just muted everyone. So it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Christiana.
Gotcha. Okay. So yes, I wanted to update about the ABOD work requirements that have went into effect July last year, and we're kind of seeing a lot more of it more recently this new year. The new proposed legislation about the changes to what can be purchased using your SNAP or EBT, and also a procedural change in terms of like renewals and things like that are going into effect, I believe this month of March. So more recently, the ABOD, which I think is more of a bigger change that some folks have been noticing. ABOD stands for able-bodied adults without dependents, and that includes folks between the ages of 18 and 65 now. Before, the age was between 18 to 60, and they've increased it to 65. So once senior folks meet the age of 66, they are not required to meet the work requirements. But it also includes people who are pregnant and who are not physically or mentally able to work with like proof from a physician. And then also people who do not care for children under the age of 14. So I've been seeing some people come in, some of our neighbors come in who are getting notices that they are now required to work, especially some seniors who are previously exempt. And now they're being required to meet one of the work requirements, which isn't necessarily just having to go to work. It also includes volunteering at a nonprofit like St. Vincent de Paul at least 80 hours a month or 20 hours a week. Or being in school or some kind of training program can meet the requirements to this. But I've been seeing a lot of people come in and now they're, kind of worried about how they're going to meet this exemption. So I keep kind of pushing the fact that volunteer hours or volunteer work counts as meeting that work requirement. But of course, that's harder for some folks who have been exempt for this from a long time. Another change is that originally homeless individuals or folks who are unhoused were exempt from meeting this requirement, but I've been noticing some changes to that too. People will be approved for up to 3 months before having to meet the requirement. So they can apply without being working and be approved for food stamps. And they'll be approved for 3 months, and we'll get a notice that will let them know that they will need to. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog snoring. Sorry.
No, we didn't.
She's getting louder on my side, so I think y'all could hear her. But originally or generally, they will be approved for up to 3 months before having to meet the work requirement. They will get a notice that lets them know that if they are being required to meet this ABOD rule, and if they do not begin working within that time, their cases will be closed, but they will have the option to reapply again. So it's getting a little tricky. They've been trying to crack down on the work requirements the last year or so. But since this past July, or more so this year, I've been seeing the changes coming more into effect, really. The other thing I wanted to mention is previously there was something that was new in the beginning of 2025, which is a periodic report. This is a change report that was being required for a lot of people receiving food stamps. They're very similar to renewals, but not as tedious. If the periodic reports weren't completed, cases would be closed, but they honestly don't take a lot of time to complete. They are discontinuing that beginning this month. So a lot of our neighbors hopefully won't be getting those notices anymore because they didn't inform folks when the periodic reports went into effect about a year ago. And a lot of people were ignoring them because they didn't realize that they were important, and then their food stamps would change. But recently during a SNAP meeting, they mentioned that they would be discontinuing this as a form of renew. It's not a renewal, but it does affect their eligibility to keep receiving food stamps, but they will be continuing that with this month, excuse me. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that there has been new legislation introduced to change what can be purchased in Georgia using your EBT cards. And that mostly is involving what they consider junk food and things like that. So there may be some restrictions coming soon in Georgia to what can be purchased to food stamps. I don't think they've yet decided what if that's going to pass, because I know a couple of other states have made that decision, but I don't believe this decision has been made yet here in Georgia. And that's primarily what I wanted to share today in terms of what's going on in SNAP. And I'm sorry if I spoke too fast.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Chris. We have a question from the chat room. What is the working income limit for a neighbor in need to maintain SNAP?
So
yeah, go ahead.
So generally for one person, because that's the one I always remember off the top of my head, they can't be making more than $1,600 a month. But there's a whole chart that I can find and share to you, Tara, maybe that we can send to the conferences. It changes every October, but I can share the most recent one, and it'll have the amount that a household can make depending on household size.
Excellent. That would be great. I'd be happy to get that out to conferences. Thank you. We also have a request to put all the SNAP changes in writing for all conferences. We can get that out in our next newsletter and also as a follow-up with this phone call. You'll receive a link to the online presentation, and we'll include that in that as well.
Yes, I can share that with y'all.
Yeah. Any other questions for Chris about SNAP? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to an update from Mariel Risner-Sibley about voter voice. As many of you are hearing in the news right now, state legislature is in session. Today is crossover day, when bills that have not yet exited committee need to make it to the other chamber in order to be continued to vet or be vetted. So Marielle, would you like to share with us an update about some of the housing related issues that have come up this session?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. Okay, that's great news. Good, good. So there are 71 people on here right now, which is wonderful. And I know a good number of you are already responsive to the voter voice alerts, but that's pretty much how many people we have right now sending email alerts. It's about 70 people. And our goal is to have about 200 people respond to these alerts. So also we can send to you the sign up where you can advertise to your conference colleagues, and you can sign up anyone and everyone to receive these action alerts and then to take action. They'll come from Denise's email address. So Denise Fisher. And for those of you who don't know me, I'll take a step back. My name is Mariel Risner-Sibley, and I lead the housing program initiatives here. So it's a pleasure to see you all. So today is crossover day, and we fully expect that HB 61, the motel bill, will cross over from the Senate back to the House. It started in the House as a license plate bill. That language was completely stripped out of it, and it became a bill that says that if someone's stay at a motel, if their contract has ended, they can be immediately locked out from their room, their property, their belongings can have an innkeeper's lien put on it, so they can't have access to their property until they pay that fee. And then if they refuse to vacate from the premises, they can be treated as a trespasser. And so the motel owner or property manager at the motel could just write out a request basically to law enforcement saying, come, come get this person. There's no due process, there's no back and forth. It's just completely, completely on the side of the motel owner, what's going on in this situation. This is in stark contrast to the rights that people who are living in motels as their primary residence are currently supposed to enjoy. Currently, under case law, under common law in Georgia, they're supposed to have the eviction process. So this HB 61 would be a sweeping difference to families that could just owe $1. Or, there are other situations here as well, as you can imagine. So when you get these action alerts about HB 61, please go ahead and reply or click on the link and send that email, and also encourage other people to do that as well. I think that's a top priority for our housing advocacy for this session, is HB 61. Other things that we have sent alerts for this session have really related to affordable housing. There is a very confusing, there are a couple different bills around it. There are a couple different confusing bills that are seeking to slash income tax credits in Georgia. The low-income housing tax credit is used to create affordable housing, and it's a wonderful product. It's a wonderful mechanism to create brand new units or to rehab units of affordable housing. And it's kind of being pulled into this advocacy around reducing or eliminating the income tax. And so it's to be determined what exactly the alert is going to say, because it's all in movement right now. It's all in flux. But if you see an email come in from Denise that says, protect our low-income housing tax credits, it has to do with our state dollars, our taxpayer dollars, which are currently being used as a match for federal dollars. And it's actually the only funding that the state of Georgia currently gives for affordable housing right now. So we really don't want that to be minimized or reduced. Our advocacy is that while state income tax changes may happen and, are likely to proceed, we would really like to see housing carved out as an exception that needs to be protected, because there are so many Georgians who are vulnerable to housing instability or homeless. So look out for those alerts. And then the last thing I'll mention to you is HB 295. This is a bill that came up last year and it's back again. It passed the House, I believe, yesterday. HB 295 creates a private cause of action for homeowners and tenants to sue their cities, or I suppose their municipalities, if they do not believe that their city is enforcing nuisance laws and they believe that they have had a reduction in the value of their home, or I guess their tenancy, because the city's not enforcing these laws. So these could be things like loitering or solicitation or begging, things like that, if the city's not arresting people or stopping the conduct. So this is a very, in my opinion, bizarre bill, HB 295, and I didn't see it moving forward, but it did. It has. It passed the House and is now in the Senate. So if you see advocacy from us about this one, it will be directed to your senator. And it's just kind of everything is still in motion. So if you see an alert come in that I haven't mentioned today, it's because, something else is really gaining traction at the Capitol, and we just kind of want to move on it. So we've been very fortunate this session to have an advocate at the Capitol. And so when you see alerts come from us, they really are minute-to-minute alerts. It really is, right on top of things. We're changing things as they come into us, which is really in real time this session, which has been very cool.
Marielle, if I might interrupt for just 1 second, I put a link to the sign up for Voter Voice in the chat. If anyone would like to copy that and then go to that site to register for Voter Voice. And if we could, Tara, if it's possible to post that link on the member site in that area, that would be helpful as well.
Sure, absolutely. Additionally, we have a question from a president. Can I sign up all of my conference members into Voter Voice? We recommend that you bring that to a meeting and invite them to sign up, because each individual will be asked to enter their home address and verify their local representatives in the Senate and the House. So it's best to let members do that on their own.
Voter Voice is designed to make it easy for you to send directly to your representative. So based on your address, it will auto-populate those emails and help you reach the people from your district, whether it's in the Senate, wherever it's going to. So that's why they should be registering themselves and putting in all their own information. You don't have to know any of all you need to know is your home address in order to sign up.
Thank you for that, Denise. With that, before we summarize kind of what we've heard so far on the call, I'm going to stop share and invite you all to ask any other questions that have not yet been answered. I know there are more in the chat. We are reviewing those. We'll get back to all of you in regard to specific questions you have about the new funding for housing, life skills, SNAP, AGL, and some of the other programs we've discussed. But with the time that we have left, are there any further questions that you'd like to ask now?
On this paperwork that was given to us in the president's retreat about the family stability, funding, and support for conferences, it says that these things will open April 1st. Are they ready to go now?
They're ready to go now. I think we said on or before April 1st to give us some leeway as we were creating that paperwork for the conference president's retreat. We had intended to reveal all the information in the town hall just to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to hear it in the same way. And so following this meeting, we will be opening the links.
Thank you.
Other questions from the crowd?
I have a question. This Mike with St. Peter's and LaGrange. So if you have a homeless individual and there's a person living in the household 18 or less, can we just assume it's an automatic approval? The funds will be there. Is there any circumstances which you would not approve that? That would help the treasurers know that the money will come back and they could go ahead and offer an extra week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There are.
We're only validating that there's a case record in CMS that.
Right, correct.
Providing some assistance and there's a minor child in the household.
There are some grants that we need to confirm guardianship, but this is not one.
Yeah, this is relatively simple.
Right.
We just need to verify those things and you're good to go.
And you did say for individuals that are already in the motels, and we've helped them in the past, but they're still struggling. We can help them with a new check request that would be matched going forward.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all.
And Mike, you had also asked in the chat, does the treasurer need to show the funds as a grant in CMS? Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. Yeah, so it would, and in that case, you wouldn't be paying solidarity on that grant.
Oh, you're talking about when we reimburse the money.
Yeah.
Right,
You
right.
just don't put it in any of those categories that would calculate solidarity. So go to the one from
Correct.
council. Yep,
Go from council. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
you're welcome.
We've been asked, when working with the family, conferences typically like to know how much time we're going to pay for them in a hotel. Should we wait until the funds are approved before we commit additional time to the neighbor? The funding in this case would not come from GRI. The funding would come from the Family Stability Fund. And should the conference wait until a request is approved before they
No, as we
promise the
just-
family more time?
As we just indicated, with Mike's question, as long as you're confident that there's a case record in CMS, that there's evidence that you're assisting the neighbor and there's a minor child, then you don't need to wait for the money to be approved or to be transferred to your account, because it will happen. So if you have any question about whether somebody's eligible for any reason, you can reach out and ask through Tara or through Lisa or Laura or whoever, but yeah, as long as there's a minor child and there's a case record and we can validate that they're unhoused currently, and there's a minor child, then it's good to go.
Will conferences need to create a CMS case for the GRI initiative?
No.
No.
Yeah, no, you'll have a case for that family that you're working with for whatever else you're doing with the family. This is a separate referral that we would then reach out and contact the family. One thing that we didn't indicate is we want to make sure that that family is expecting a call from council. So make sure that you let the neighbor know that you're making the referral. So we'll reach out and then deal with that program independently. So it's not a case for a referral. We'll be tracking those referrals off separately outside of CMS.
Okay. Any other questions from those online?
This is Mary George with Gainesville, St. Michael, and we have never asked for a birth certificate for a child that we put in CMS in a family. You don't need a birth certificate for this family stability?
Correct.
No,
We
we
do
just
not.
need you to validate that there's a minor in the household.
Yes, okay.
Great question. And just for a reminder that you're welcome as a conference to revisit your guidelines at any time. Some of you have guidelines regarding financial amounts or how often you'll help a neighbor. If someone has approached you again and they're now homeless, or you've already helped them before and you feel it's worthwhile to help them again, we leave that decision to you as a conference to vet and decide if it's appropriate to assist that person again. We hope you will. But as a reminder, guidelines are guidelines, and conferences are welcome to revisit them as often as you need to.
Or to make exceptions to them.
Yes, or to make exceptions. Great. Excellent. Well, we have just a few minutes left, 6 to be exact. I think if there are no further questions, actually, let me pop down to the bottom of the chat. I see there are 2 new ones. Great. Thank you. Thank you for your compliments on an informative town hall. We will certainly share the PowerPoint with you all, as well as a recording, so you can make that available to your conferences. And when that comes over, it will include links and the bullet points from Marielle about legislation, from Christiana about SNAP changes, and as well as some Q&As, frequently asked questions regarding these new housing programs. With that, I think we can turn turn our attention to a closing prayer.
Wonderful. All right, thank you, dear loving God. We thank you for this opportunity together to share information. We thank you for this wonderful group of volunteers who are working together to serve our brothers and sisters in need, to serve them in your name, to be your hands and feet and minister to you and your suffering disguise. We ask you to bless the work that we each do. We ask you to bless all those we serve and bless all of our conferences. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it all.
Thank you,
all.
guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.